TF2 is a war-themed hat simulator. At some point, TF2 became just as well known for its over-the-top headwear as much as its gameplay and characters. And no hats were more emblematic of this than unusual hats. With bright and flashy particle effects, these rare eye-catching hats were sure to make you the attention of the entire lobby. However, for years, one of these hats has stood the test of time and become one of the most sought-after items in video game history, with only a select few having the privilege to call it their own. This item is the Burning Flames Team Captain, and we'll go over the long and interesting history it's had after the break. Do you like fantasy? Do you like dragons? No, dragons are... Well, boy, are you in luck, because this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Is one of the 7 thing is how it relates to our... It's so expensive. In order to get a Strange Factory new top shelf minigun, you need 10 Strange Factory new mercenary grade items from the same collection. In order to get item in the game, selling for 3 golden frying pans. We have gotten to the point where the golden frying pan, an item already known for being comically expensive and gaudy, is being used as a currency to purchase items. If a key in the TF2's economy is equivalent to a dollar bill and the metals are change, the golden pan is essentially handing someone a platinum bar. Valued at a whopping 9,600 keys and over $18,500, the Darkblaze antlers have reached an unprecedented level of cost for a virtual hat. But what if I told you, it still isn't the most expensive item in TF2? Not by a long shot. When I first saw this, I was speechless. When I learned of the Darkblaze antlers, I thought that was the top. Surely nothing could beat it out. But I was proved humiliatingly wrong. 5 months before this video was posted, the Poison Shadow antlers sold for 5 golden frying pans. Valued at 15,000 keys and close to 30 grand, this has become TF2's most expensive item. Nearly double the price of what once seemed like the peak of the TF2 economy. The Burning Flames Team Captain may not be the most expensive cosmetic anymore, or even the most revered, as community awareness of its existence has tapered off since the heyday of TF2. But that's not where the story of the Burning Flames Team Captain ends. Unlike the Darkblaze and Poison Shadow antlers, the Burning Flames Team Captain could theoretically still be unboxed. One would have to be insanely lucky, as it's already a less than 1% chance to unbox an unusual hat. But you have to unbox the correct effect, which is a 1 in 14 chance on the correct hat out of over 100. If you were locked in a room with an infinite supply of money and couldn't leave until you unboxed an unusual Burning Flames Team Captain, you would basically have the lifestyle of a Reddit moderator. But someday, someone will open a crate and unknowingly start a chapter in a very long and very complicated story. It's just a matter of who and when.
Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbow.
Let's go, let's go, let's go! Woo! Ready!
Are you committed to playing Scout, and should I switch?
Medals for everyone! Go, go, go!
Yo, Scout. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your message. I'd like to stick with Scout. I can switch to any.
Man up mode activated.
We'll do this rounding.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Play ball! Alright, I feel good.
It's no doubt that Team Fortress 2 is one of the most culturally significant multiplayer games of our generation. Since the game launched in October 2007, millions of players have fallen in love with the game's unique art style, 9 endearing classes, and mechanically rich gameplay. The game's characters, videos, and jokes have transcended into mainstream internet culture, and the game continues to maintain a strong active player base to this day. Much has been said about how TF2's art style, characters, and gameplay have stayed in the public psyche for so long, but today I wanted to focus on another, often overlooked aspect of TF2, a part of the game that I believe has contributed to TF2's longevity just as much, if not more than any other aspect of the game. That is the TF2 economy. If you've heard of the TF2 economy, then you're probably familiar with its hacks. You may have seen some of the game's signature pieces of headwear and heard stories of the insane prices people are willing to pay for them. You may have wondered why anyone in their right mind would care so much about virtual pixels on a computer screen. But the TF2 economy isn't just a hat simulator. It's an intricate free market system in the midst of an unassuming first-person community. It's a system where supply and demand determine prices, currencies are used to mediate trades, and players can make real-world money buying and selling virtual items. It's a system that, against all odds, revolutionized game monetization, thrust TF2 into mainstream gaming culture, and gave the game new levels of fun and cosmetic self-expression. Without the TF2 economy, TF2 as we know it simply wouldn't exist. Thus, in order to fully understand TF2's influence on the gaming world, we need to understand the history of the TF2 economy. We have to understand how this ridiculous idea came into being, how it has evolved and influenced the game over time, and what the economy might look like in the future. In this series, I'm going to tell the complete story of the TF2 economy, from the humble beginnings of the economy to the rise of currencies, trade websites, inflation, and more. I want to ensure that the incredible history of one of the world's premier virtual economies is not lost in the years and decades to come. Whether you're a TF2 trading veteran, a casual player of the game, or even someone who has never heard of TF2 or the in-game economy at all, I hope that you'll find this deep dive into one of TF2's most fascinating rabbit holes as interesting as I do. Without further ado, let's get right on into it. Our journey begins on April 29, 2008, with the release of the first major update to TF2, the Gold Rush update. Also referred to as the Medic update, the update added the very first items to the game, 3 unlockable weapons for the Medic. In the early days of TF2, each class had a stock loadout, and there was no way to customize your characters at all. However, with the addition of unlockable weapons, Valve added a way for players to equip new items using a rudimentary loadout menu. These new weapons could be found via the achievement system and were not prohibitively difficult to obtain. Each weapon was also designed as a functional side grade with both upsides and downsides, rather than being a pure upgrade to the stock weapon it was replacing. This initial philosophy would become a core value of the TF2 item system. No matter how exciting and flashy items were, collecting them was not essential to play the game. Anyone could boot up TF2 without items and compete with the best of the best. Based on the same framework as the Medic update, the Pyro, Heavy, and Scout updates arrived in June 2008, August 2008, and February 2009 respectively, each introducing 3 new unlockable weapons. But just as players begun to speculate on what class would get weapons in the next update, Valve had already set their eyes on an entirely new kind of item that would go on to define TF2 for years, if not decades to come: hats. On April 20th, 2009, a small update began laying the groundwork for hats. The patch added a mysterious headgear slot to the loadout menu, as well as a 50-slot item inventory dubbed a backpack to help organize and store items. This led to rampant speculation within the community. What was headgear for? Would it be functional or cosmetic? Was TF2 turning into an RPG? Was Valve out of their minds? A few weeks later, the answer would be revealed. On May 12, 2009, Valve unveiled the next major update to TF2, the Sniper update. In classic Valve tradition, Valve revealed the update incrementally over the period of a week. While Valve spent the first few days showing off the expected slate of new weapons for the Sniper, they made a shocking announcement on day 4. The Spy would be receiving new weapons as well. But the update, now called the Sniper vs. Spy update, did not end there. Valve had one last trick up their sleeve. On the 9th and final day of the update, Valve revealed a cryptic magazine cover. With the title Hat-Wearing Man, the magazine showed the demo man, spy, and engineer, each wearing a new piece of headwear. It was no longer speculation. Valve had added hats to the game. Later confirmed to be 9 items in total, 1 for each class, hats were designed as purely cosmetic items with no effect on gameplay whatsoever. What hats did give players was a new way to customize their characters and show off their fashion sense in-game. While not quite an RPG, TF2 had, in a way, become a hat simulator. At the time, the rollout and release of hats was surrounded in mystery. Hats were not documented in the patch notes, and nobody was told how to obtain one for themselves. Some even doubted that hats were added at all. In time, players learned that hats were linked to a new feature called the drop system. Fueled by complaints of unlockable weapons being tied to achievements, the drop system periodically dropped items for free, allowing players to get items simply by playing the game. While weapon drops were common and occurred once every couple of play sessions, hat drops were extremely rare. So rare, in fact, that even a few months after the update, only a small handful of lucky players had received a single hat. Hats soon gained a mythical aura around them, and anyone wearing them was seemingly blessed by the Valve gods. For the vast majority of the player base, hats were, in effect, unobtainable. On August 13, 2009, Valve released the Classless update. In addition to new maps and game modes, the update added a whopping 21 new pieces of headwear, including 2 hats for each class, plus an additional hatless cosmetic for the Scout, Engineer, and Sniper. The update also added a new MISC item slot to the loadout menu, setting the stage for future cosmetics that could be worn in addition to hats. With more hats in the game, many hoped they might finally be able to get a hat for themselves. Yet, just like before, hats continued to be exceedingly rare, causing many to call out Valve for what they saw as an unfair system. You couldn't just market a cool new type of item and then prevent anyone from realistically obtaining them. Faced with the typical silence from Valve, players turned to a new strategy to obtain hats: idling. Players would open TF2, join a dedicated idling server, and leave the game open for as long as possible to try and maximize their chance of getting a hat from the drop system. Some players even took it a step further and downloaded third-party clients that faked in-game playtime without ever launching TF2. The war on hats had officially begun. On September 2, 2009, Valve responded to the community, but not in the way that many were expecting. In a short blog post, Valve came down harshly on players for using third-party clients, going so far as to remove all items from inventories gained using these programs. In the future, they claimed they'd enforce a quote zero-tolerance policy against any programs that manipulated the item system. In another unexpected move, Valve gave a reward to those who took the quote moral high ground and refrained from using third-party idling programs. In the days ahead, these players would receive a brand new hat, the Cheater's Lament, the very first hat that could be worn on all 9 classes. Valve also claimed to have increased the drop rate on hats, quote, significantly, and assured players that in time, there would be more systems in place for players to obtain the fancy hats they so desired. While hats continued to be rare for the time being, many players were simply happy enough to get a free hat from Valve. October brought forth the Haunted Halloween Special, the first of what would become a series of annual Halloween updates. Although the update was fairly modest in size, the patch featured an all-class hat called the Ghastly Gibbous, which quickly became the highlight of the update. Given to any player who dominated someone wearing the hat, the ghastly gibbous was incredibly easy to obtain, and it didn't take long for anyone who wanted the hat to get it. Because of its ubiquity, however, variations of the gibbous would become an icon of newbiness for years to come. In November, Valve introduced the first ever promotional item. Players who pre-ordered Left 4 Dead 2 received a Bill's hat, an all-class beret based on the hat worn by William Overbeck, one of the main characters of the franchise. The concept of promo items proved successful, and Valve would go on to release hundreds more over the better part of a decade. Before the year came to a close, Valve had one last update in store. On December 17, 2009, the War update arrived, bringing with it the class updates for the Soldier and the Demo Man. While the update itself didn't add any new hats, it introduced a system called crafting that allowed players to finally obtain hats for themselves. Ever since Valve added the drop system, duplicate weapons would pile up in players' inventories with no practical use. Crafting, however, allowed players to take unwanted items and craft them into new items that they didn't already have. This process was facilitated by a new kind of item called metal. Unlike weapons or hats, metal was confined to players' inventories and couldn't be equipped as an item. However, within the crafting system, metal could be used to craft almost any equipable item at the time and came in 3 different denominations. The smallest denomination was scrap metal, which could be crafted from 3 weapons from the same class. Next was reclaim metal, which could be made from 3 pieces of scrap metal. Finally, the largest denomination was refined metal, which could in turn be crafted from 3 pieces of reclaimed metal. If a player managed to reach 3 refined metal, they could craft a random hat. Hat crafting was extremely expensive, costing over 100 weapons and hours upon hours of playtime, but it presented the first system in which hats could realistically be obtained. With new hats in hand, players began to stop idolizing basic hats, bringing an end to the golden era of hats. But hats, as time would tell, were only the beginning. In the first half of 2010, Valve was laser focused on adding new items to the game. In January, Valve launched an official contribution site, allowing them to outsource item creation to the community. In March, the first batch of community hats arrived, followed by another batch in May. Building upon the original Left 4 Dead promotion, Valve continued to add promo items to the game. One particularly iconic item was the Max's severed head, an all-class pair of bunny ears that would later become a miscellaneous item, allowing it to be equipped in addition to a regular hat. Another iconic item were earbuds, an all-class miscellaneous item given out to players when TF2 arrived on map. Although originally considered a sign of inexperience like the ghastly gibbous, earbuds, or buds for short, would go on to become one of the most coveted items in the game, taking on additional significance beyond simply being a cosmetic. The final class-specific update, the Engineer update, arrived in July. As big and exciting as the update was, TF2's future was uncertain. Very few games at the time lasted this long, and most speculated that TF2 updates would eventually stop, most likely after the final class update, at which point the next big game would take its place. The next update, however, would change everything. It would not only show Valve's commitment to the game for years to come, but it would create an entirely new way of interacting with the game, spawn a virtual item economy, and introduce a business model that would be emulated and refined by some of the biggest gaming companies in the future. That update, of course, was the Man Economy update. Released on September 30th, 2010, the Man Economy update was TF2's biggest update to date, focusing entirely on the in-game item system. In addition to more than 65 new items, including dozens of hats and weapons, and new items like paint cans and name tags, the update added 3 features that fundamentally changed the game. The first was the introduction of the Manco store. A radical idea at the time, the Manco store was an in-game shop where players could purchase items directly for real money. While the store gave players an easy way to obtain items outside of the drop system, many considered the Manco store to be egregiously expensive. Players had already spent money on the base game, so spending as much as $10 to $15 per item seemed outrageous. This sentiment was further compounded by the addition of item sets, collections of weapons and hats that granted a small gameplay bonus when equipped together. Because the only realistic way to get these bonuses was to buy expensive new items, item sets were borderline pay to win and contradicted Valve's initial item philosophy. Item sets would remain largely unpopular, ultimately convincing Valve to remove set bonuses a few years later. On some level, Valve must have realized that individual item sales could be limited. Expensive cosmetics might be profitable in the short term, but eventually sales would wane as players got the items that they wanted. In order to ensure the long-term profitability of the Manco store, Valve needed a way to make players return to the store over and over again. Their solution was to introduce two new kinds of items, crates and keys. Combined, they represented the second game-changing feature added in the Man-Economy update, loot boxes. While the concept of randomized booster packs wasn't entirely new, TF2 was arguably the first online game to perfect it. Each crate contained a random item from a list of hats, weapons, or other items, and could only be unlocked with a key purchase from the Manco store for $2.50. While most of the time players would unbox a common and generally unexciting item, each player had a 1% chance of unboxing something truly rare and special, an unusual hat. At their core, unusual hats were simply premium versions of existing hats. In addition to being a piece of headwear, each unusual featured a particle effect that surrounded the hat. These effects could range from a circling heart or peace sign, a hat with falling confetti, or even a hat on fire. Introduced as a new quality of item, Unusuals featured a special purple item border in-game, signifying that players had obtained a rare and exceptional item. Unusuals were an instant success. They quickly became the driving force behind store purchases, and the sale of keys in the first few months alone is likely to have made Valve more money than they'd made in total from TF2 game sales up until that point. This was, in effect, the second hat craze of TF2, a craze that would continue for the rest of the game's lifespan. The third and final game-changing feature added in the Man-Economy update was almost an afterthought in the eyes of players at the time. But to all those who came after, this would become the most defining part of the update. That is, the introduction of player-to-player trading. It's easy to forget, but prior to the Man-Economy update, items were locked to specific accounts. Crafting may have made items in general easier to get, but it was still difficult to obtain specific sought-after items. In Valve's eyes, player-to-player trading was the perfect solution to this problem. If you and your friend each had a spare hat that you didn't want, you could simply trade with each other to each get new items that you wanted more. What Valve may not have expected, however, was how this innocuous little feature would go on to take on a life of its own. Although trading was rare in the beginning, it quickly picked up speed. Some players started out trading to get new weapons, others looked for crates to unbox. Still more sought out promo items that they missed out on. It didn't take long for trade messages to fill TF2's game servers, prompting many admins to restrict or outright ban trade discussion. But this didn't keep traders away. Instead, they created their own dedicated trade servers, giving traders a central place to buy, sell, and discuss items. In these early trade servers, the TF2 economy was unfolding. Players discovered that some items were rarer than others. Others realized they could buy an item from one person and then sell it for more to someone else. In its infancy, the TF2 economy was a perfect case study of economic systems. In the beginning, there was no standardized way to measure value, short of each player being happy with their side of the trade. While some trades worked out, many failed because neither party had the items that the other wanted. In economic terms, this was a barter economy. Players were forced to trade apples for oranges. The solution, of course, was the establishment of currencies. Without any sort of guidance from Valve, a basic system of currencies began to emerge. For most items, metal became the go-to currency. Metal was easily divisible and had intrinsic value in the crafting system, making it an obvious choice. Players also developed a standard notation for metal denominations based on their crafting recipes. Under this system, all amounts of metal were represented using refined metal, denoted as 1.00. The smaller forms of metal, reclaimed metal and scrap metal, were denoted as 0.33 and 0.11 respectively. With this in mind, a seller could ask for 2.44 refined metal, and buyers would instinctively know that this was 2 pieces of refined metal, 1 piece of reclaimed metal, and 1 piece of scrap metal. For more expensive items, keys became a secondary currency. Keys were a good choice because they were in demand for unboxing and were effectively anchored to their store price of $2.50, making them very stable. In many ways, keys were like the dollar bills of the economy, and metal was the cents. While the economy could have functioned with only 2 currencies, trading logistics dictated the need for a third. When the Manconomy update first came out, players couldn't trade more than 4 items at once in the in-game trade window. Although this was quickly increased to 8 items per player, TF2's most valuable items could sell for far more than 8 keys. In order to trade these expensive items, limited promos like Bill's hats and Max's severed heads were used instead. No item, however, would prove to be as popular as the earbuds. By mid-2011, buds had become the go-to high-tier currency, acting like the $20 bills of the economy. As more players learned how to trade, items developed generally accepted prices. While players could eventually learn these prices by spending enough time on trade servers, most players wanted price estimates without being market experts themselves. These estimates arrived, out of all places, in the form of public Google spreadsheets. Within months of the Manconomy update, half a dozen public spreadsheets had emerged, each competing with each other to publish the most trusted, accurate, and up-to-date prices. Over time, one spreadsheet went on to dwarf all others in terms of size and popularity. This spreadsheet came to be known as the TF2 spreadsheet, and nearly every trade server linked to it as a guide for making fair trades. Early traders also helped coin a unique trading vocabulary. Refined and reclaimed metal came to be known as ref and rec respectively. Currencies like metal and keys were commonly referred to as pure, indicating that they had some sort of liquid, stable value. A clean item was an item that could be used in crafting, whereas a dirty item was one that had a crafting restriction on it. Overpay was a popular way to buy items without currency, where players would offer to pay more than an item's market value in order to entice the other seller. With established currencies, trusted price guides, and a basic trading vernacular, the TF2 economy was well on its way to long-term prosperity. In this burgeoning economy, unlockable weapons were the most common and least expensive items on the market. However, because weapons could be crafted into metal, they served as the building blocks for obtaining more desirable items. In early 2011, Valve released an update that made crafting more affordable. Most notably, scrap metal was changed to cost 2 weapons instead of 3, in turn reducing the cost of 1 refined metal to 18 weapons instead of 27. Although seemingly small, this change made it significantly easier for players to acquire higher denominations of metal, and with more metal, players could afford other items such as keys. Although metal denominations had a fixed exchange rate, there was no crafting recipe between keys and metal. This meant that the exchange rate between the 2 currencies was constantly in flux, dictated by the market. In the first few months of the economy, keys were worth about 1 refined metal, which later rose to 2.33 refined by mid-2011. The price of high-end currencies fluctuated as well, with earbuds holding a value between 10 to 15 keys during this time. Hats, on the other hand, were more affordable. While newer hats held a higher price due to hype and scarcity, most craftable hats, or craft hats for short, typically settled at a price of around 1 to 2 refined as supply increased. Compared to buying hats from the Manco store, market price was very reasonable and incentivized players to trade for items rather than buying them outright. Like weapons, crates often fell from the drop system and were worth very little. Vintage items were more expensive. At the time the Manconomy update came out, all existing items were converted into a special dark blue vintage quality as a way to reward players who obtained items the quote old-fashioned way. Later in 2011, all items crafted using their older, more expensive crafting recipes were converted to vintage as well. Although most vintage items only cost a few refined more than their regular counterparts, certain ultra-rare items like the vintage Fan of War could cost a fortune. The most expensive items, unsurprisingly, were unusuals. Due to their extreme rarity and flashy particle effects, unusuals were the most coveted items in the game. However, despite their popularity, unusual trading was the Wild West. TF2 spreadsheet didn't support unusual prices, and with very few in existence, it was hard to determine a fair price for each hat. While forum threads and online guides offered some guidance, there were still many who accidentally traded away unusuals for pennies on the dollar. As the economy took off, Valve continued to update the game, adding new items on an almost weekly basis. In October 2010, the second annual Halloween update arrived, this time dubbed the Scream Fortress update. In addition to Halloween-themed hats, the update added 3 new crates, each containing a new set of items and a renewed chance to unbox an unusual. Over time, Valve would continue to add more and more crates to the game, on average about 2 to 3 per month at their peak. December brought forth TF2's first ever Christmas update, the Australian Christmas Update. The patch introduced TF2's first themed crate, the Festive Winter Crate, containing a set of Christmas-themed cosmetics. The crate could only be opened with a special Festive Winter Key, and after December 31st, 2010, all Winter Keys were converted into regular keys. This limited the total number of Winter Crates that could be unboxed, and incentivized players to open crates while they still had the chance. In early 2011, Valve introduced an exciting new kind of promotional item. Starting with promotions tied to the game's Rift and Total War Shogun 2, players could receive promotional items in a special new item quality, the Dark Green Genuine quality. This new quality was a big success, and the first genuine items were very expensive and sought after, often allowing players to sell their promotional items for more than they paid for the game. Some players also took advantage of a loophole tied to the Rift promotion, where players could pre-order the game and cancel their order without losing their items. This was something that was quickly fixed by the time the next promotion came around. Later that May, the Replay update introduced item numbering to the crafting system. Each time a new hat was crafted, it was marked with a special number representing the order it was crafted in among all players. Craft numbers were by definition one of a kind, and any hat with a craft number of 1 to 10, as well as special numbers like 99 or 100, could go for quite a bit of money. A tradition soon emerged where players would rush to the crafting system whenever a new update was released, hoping to snag the newest hats with the lowest craft numbers. As exciting as these updates were, none would reshape the game in the same way that the main economy updates did. TF2's next update, however, would come very close. On June 20th, 2011, Valve announced the Uber update. In a short blog post, Valve revealed that the update would center around the long-anticipated Meet the Medic short, and that the update would be the most ambitious update in the history of TF2. To celebrate, Valve announced that
Alright guys, so recently Andrew Tate dropped an interview with the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist tweeted out saying, "My interview, therapy session with Andrew Tate." And honestly, this was probably one of the more interesting interviews I've watched with Andrew Tate, because they answer a lot of questions, and the psychiatrist asks Tate some crazy questions, and it's overall just a very, very crazy thing to watch overall. Also, if you want to know more about Andrew Tate's The Real World, which is his university, check out the first link in the description. You can read about it and potentially change your life. Yeah guys, leave a like on the video and subscribe with notifications so you don't miss the latest stuff updates. But yeah, just take a look at this interview. It was pretty amazing.
Ready to break the internet, friend?
How are we going to break the internet? You said you wanted this to be impactful. What would that look like to you?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of people are interested in my journey. I think a lot of people are interested in how it feels to go through what I'm going through.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who want me to martyr myself. A lot of people are living vicariously through me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who say, yeah, Andrew, keep going. But they don't really care. They just enjoy the drama of it all. And I think I've already broken the internet, but you're a very interesting man to talk to. And with your insights, I think together, we're going to have quite a large audience.
Yeah, I mean, that's a question that I have for you. Why did you want to talk to me? Because I'm a psychotherapist. You have your skepticism about psychotherapy, and yet here I am.
That's true. We had a conversation before, and I've been told by many people it was my most interesting podcast ever. So I think it obviously varies from the norm in terms of the normal things I'm asked about. You have some unique insights. And I thought it'd be an interesting conversation. A lot of people are asking me especially about my mental state and those kind of things post-jail. So I thought, well, my most interesting podcast ever. People seem to be very interested in that side of me. So perhaps it can be a good conversation.
Does it make you nervous that there may be things that you don't know about yourself that I'm going to try to reveal to you?
I know everything about myself, my friend.
You know everything about yourself.
I believe that I have an intimate grasp of all the things about myself which matter, which allow me to compete.
Right.
So there may be things I don't know, but I'm not sure if I particularly need them. So I'm not that interested.
Right. What's useful is more important than what's true.
Absolutely.
Right, and you've developed a framework of thinking about yourself and thinking about reality that's been incredibly effective for you.
Completely. Right. What's useful is more, you nailed it, what's useful is more important than what's true. This is an old argument of mine, but I think we discussed it in the last podcast, and I'll say it again. When I say I don't believe in depression, nobody can convince me to believe in depression. That's not a matter of discussing whether depression is real or not. That's a matter of me accepting that my mental model for going through life is more effective if I don't believe I can become a depressed person. Yeah. I don't believe in depression, so I can't be depressed, so that allows me to be more effective. It's not a matter of sitting there going, well, maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. I don't believe in it, so I can't catch it.
You shape your own reality through the conviction of your thoughts, your beliefs, and the words that you use.
Why else would you adopt any kind of mindset unless it's designed specifically to make you competitive and make you win? You install the software in your mind, right? So if I'm going to install software in my mind.
Install it?
Well, I've tried very hard to curate it.
Right, because wasn't it installed by your upbringing? Wasn't it installed by your mother and your father in some way?
Good question.
Before you were conscious, while you were just a developing child, like something got programmed into your psyche that has to have an impact on you. And those things can't necessarily be known because you were at such a young age.
Absolutely. We're all programmed to some degree. I agree with you on this so far. I don't think anybody can escape programming, whether it's society, whether it's a television show, whether it's the people around you, peer pressure, whether it's a religion. We're all programmed to some degree. That's absolutely not really true. What I have done, and what I think most people do not do, is heavily analyze why I hold the beliefs I hold, why they help me. If I don't hold the belief personally, or if I didn't learn it from personal experience, I know where it came from, who tried to teach me that, whether their intentions for me were good or bad. And I've tried very hard to have my mindset rigidly analyzed and make sure that it's put together in a way which benefits me completely and absolutely. And I do not believe in things that take away power from me. Right. I refuse to do that. I would rather say that they are not real. And people will sit here and argue to the end of time that they are real, but they're not real in my world. And I live inside of my mind. So even if you throw me in a Romanian dungeon, the idea that I become a depressed person is not a framework that my mind works within, so I can't become depressed. I can feel a little bit sad, sure, I can feel depressed, but I can't be depressed. They're very different things. So that's just a mindset I've installed, and it's allowed me to be competitive. And I believe, personally, my personal beliefs are that life as a man is hyper-competitive, and whatever software you have in your mind should be designed to make you as competitive as possible, and you shouldn't be believing in absolutely anything else. So I've tried very hard to make sure all of my worldviews and all of my experiences and everything is curated and aimed in a direction which is going to allow me to be a fearsome competitor in all realms of human endeavor.
Have there been some of your beliefs or convictions that have been challenged through the experiences that you've had, particularly in the last, recently?
Well, people challenge me often. And what a lot of people don't understand is that I will never adopt the thinking of somebody who is sad. Fact about the fact they're going to be exploited anyway.
Hey everybody, what is going on? Star here, and we've got some gameplay of Team Fortress 2 in the year 2023. And this isn't a joke, I've actually been playing the game kind of a lot lately. And I'm sure one of the first questions you're gonna have is why? Well, more specifically, like, why now? Well, the simplest explanation is that there was a summer update recently, caught a bit of hype, and TF2 actually had its highest concurrent player count it has ever had through its entire lifespan. Yeah, really. No, the only thing more surprising to me is that its highest player count really isn't even that high when you look at it compared to like Counter-Strike or Dota 2. I don't know. So anyway, then yeah, was this summer update so awesome that everyone had to come back and play it all at once? And I would say not really. Really, the highlight is that they added 14 new maps, and that's about it. And I don't even think people coming back are excited about that, because everyone just wants the nostalgia of being on Dub's Pole, your gold rushes, your bad waters. Here I am on Upward again. Now, for me personally, it helps that this update came out because it actually did fix a lot of things that would cause you to get like DDoS while you're streaming and make it absolutely impossible to actually play the game. So that matters to me, but by and large, I don't think it matters to a lot of people. And I think it was just time. There's no way to put it other than it's just time. And honestly, the trends in gaming lately have been remakes and remasters. It's been 10 years, guys. And yeah, I don't think TF2 really needs a remaster either. It still, like, honestly is one of the best looking games for how old it is. It still visually holds up because it's not relying on advanced graphics, techniques, ray tracing. It's just like a very charming aesthetic. And that's despite all the hats. That's despite this medic doing the conga on the cart, and I am the one who gets headshot for some reason. But here's the thing. For me, it's not even just nostalgia for TF2 is driving this. It is nostalgia for a simpler time before every single game became a competitive matchmaking esport. Now, okay, I'm not innocent here. I got swept up in it, all right? I mean, all that stuff was fun and engaging for a bit, but now it's like, it's just nice to return to something way more simple. And a different game on Steam really had me thinking of this very recently. BattleBit Remastered came out not that long ago. It's basically just Battlefield, but it's like actually fun. So here, I want to show you this clip from my metaphysical husband Shore4, and there is context for why I want to show you.
What if that was Dyer's drone I just shot down?
Bro, where? Holy
I got you, got you.
Oh, right in front of us. Don't die on me. Where?
So the context is, that clip's just funny, and I'm glad I could show you. But also, context number 2, there is no skill-based matchmaking in this game. There is no engagement optimized matchmaking, which is a whole other horror story if you want to read about that. Every person of every skill level just gets to play together. And even if someone is killing everyone that bad, if there's someone that good in the server, he pointed out to me that like, it really doesn't matter. There's 127 enemies. If he kills 100 people in a round, he still hasn't killed every person one time. And for me, the biggest thing about BattleBit that I was enjoying that I hadn't even realized I was really missing was that the best matchmaking is when you can just go to the other team. When I want a challenge and my team's winning too much, I just want to be able to switch to the opposite team and try and see if I can dig them out of that hole. And this specific gameplay that I'm showing, I think is actually another really great example of really just choosing your own goal and having your own fun. And you can try hard and there can be a challenge, and all of the skill levels don't have to actually be perfectly match made. So in this gameplay, I'm trying my hardest to just destroy these sentries. We were pushing upward, it was going great. I was like, oh, this is a cool video with this little scout gameplay. And now there's like 6 engineers with level 3 sentries, and it is so hard to destroy each and every one of them. It's, again, not required.
This one is in the bag.
It's in the bag.
Affliction. "30 seconds to showtime."
a high level of execution from the engineers, but that doesn't matter at all. I think
And they're off.
Of course. No escape. Forward.
High hopes for this one.
Quickly.
Monsieur, does this mean Team Fortress is back?
No!
I'll plague you. A galloping infection. Loves the spot. Play.